I'm a third-year nursing student with 5 units left to finish my degree. I've been in a primary healthcare setting, mental health, alcohol and other drugs, and all of these kind of positions for about 25 years on and off. Currently work in psych.
My name's Amy. I'm a nurse from Perth, but I moved to Darwin. So originally I'm an acute peds nurse, so like doing paediatrics, and I've transferred from the hospital up to Darwin, and I'm doing primary healthcare at Danila Dilba, so it's like the Aboriginal Medical Service, and I did a syphilis-based role, so syphilis nurse, and then I just transferred over because I missed working with children so that I could work with the kids at the clinic. Oh, thanks.
Feel free to hold.
Cool. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
My name is Tamara Jones. I'm originally from Nyunga country. I'm a Nyunga woman. I'm working in Cairns at the moment with the Poona Pima Cape York Health Council. Even though I'm Cairns based, my role is assisting the women when they come down at 36 weeks for awaiting labour and birth from the Cape York communities. I do a lot of midwifery stuff, and I also do a heap of social justice advocacy and, as you could imagine, heaps of child protection stuff as well. But I love my job. I love being a midwife, and that's awesome that there's so many midwives and midwifery students out there.
Hello, my name's Jason Coombs. I'm a proud Gunai Kurnai man from Lake Tyers Aboriginal Trust in Victoria. When I started into my nursing career, the only thing I wanted to do was do remote from the very beginning, so I had it in my head. So I sort of started off my journey and worked in the hospitals and that, and then had an opportunity to go. That's why I looked at you funny then, because I worked for a Poona Pima, and that was my first remote up in the Cape York in a community called Arakoon. Arakoon, you probably have heard of, a 1500 community there. So I worked up there and established the clinic, the Poona Pima clinic in Arakoon. Oh, thank you. Just did, isn't it? Yeah. So I've got my handprint on that. And then I went from there, and then I went from there to probably the most remote community in South Australia, Oak Valley. It's a 2-nurse clinic, and that was an eye-opener because it still is today. Actually, I'm still working there today, and to go from supported big clinics and organisations to 2 nurses is pretty full on, but I love it. So at the moment, I really can't get much more remote than I am at the moment. Yep, and I love it.
Ted Murphy, I'm Jinnaburra from southeast Queensland, Mount Mee if you know it. Currently working in the Northern Territory. My background in remote is mostly West Arnhem, places like Goombalanya, Milingimbi, Maningrida, probably too many to list actually. And like Jason, have a passion for remote area nursing. Unfortunately, you show a bit of talent for something and they promote you out of it, so I'm no longer working there. I'm stuck in Darwin these days.
I'm starting the conversation. Okay. So what I thought we'd just do is maybe, we could ask some questions and then we're going to open up to everyone. So what, I really want to do is just start a conversation about different pathways, because I think it sort of came up yesterday as well that, a lot of grads think, well, I have to go to the hospital to get experience, and I really want to look at other pathways like, Danella was talking about NACHO and all those vacancies and stuff. Well, how do we get our members into NACHO if that's where they want to go, or into remote health or community or whatever? So I think it'd be good to pass it back down the line and talk about, what your journey was into that space and, some of the good stuff, but also some of the challenges once you're in there. You listen up the end there? Look out.
Hey, I was just pretending like I was singing. Can you hear me without that? No. Oh, you mob gammon, I hate microphone. But anyway, so let's talk a little bit about my problems and what's going to happen to me at the end of my degree in the next 6 months.
So what's going to happen to me is going to happen to probably all of the nursing students in the room. So it's a really serious problem that we've got, and it's pretty much our pathways into the nursing areas that we want to work in. So for me, I'm going to finish my degree on the 13th of March in Gove. I'm going to have to wait until July to graduate, and I'm not even going to be able to apply for a grad year until July, because I've missed the cut-off now because I won't be graduated by finished all my units by the 13th of December, so I've missed out on the January-March intake next year. So that means that I'm going to finish, be a nurse, okay, cool, I can go and work green in a ward where, I don't know what your wards are like, but up in Darwin, in our med-surg wards, they're just absolutely horrific. And the nurses just eat us alive, and it's also not an area that I want to work in. So for me, the cultural safety on the wards is just not there for me to be able to go in green, not know these medications, not know these illnesses, not have ever cared for patients as sick as what they are without the security of having that grad year. So then pretty much July will come around, I can apply, will I get one, will I not? If I decide to go and work as a nurse in, top-end mental health services, which you all know my story now, they would jump up and down and be happy as for me to go and do that. But once you start working for more than, I think it's like 50% or something in that week, it knocks you out for a grad year because they automatically presume that you know what you're doing now, you've got your experience on the floor, therefore you don't need a grad year anymore, even though you're stuck in a psych ward or stuck in aged care or something like that. What I'm proposing to Katsunum at the moment is that I would love to see a primary healthcare grad program be developed for Indigenous nursing students. So someone like me, I've got AOD, I've got mental health, I've got everything from the last 20 odd years, but that doesn't make me any more able to look after my people in a primary healthcare setting than any of you mob in here. You know what I mean? This is our people, these are our clinics, and this is, 100% patient load of, well, why can't we go there? Why do we have to do our Bachelor of Nursing and then go and do a grad year in a department with people where we're not culturally safe and then end up in industries that we don't really want to be in? And we're losing so many of us once we graduate, get into those wards, they get eaten alive, and then next minute, there goes our Indigenous nursing stats again. So, I don't think that we should have to wait. So at the moment, to go out onto any of the Indigenous communities in the Northern Territory, you need to have a minimum of a grad year, a minimum of 3 years experience, and that's just to work into an N3 position. And within those positions, there's no Indigenous nurses out there, you know what I mean? So we've probably got one or two, I think. What do you reckon? But not many at all, you know what I mean? Whereas, I know myself, I'm coming through with 5 Indigenous nurses next year, and we all want to go bush and none of us can. So, there's no remote area nursing pathway, and there's just no primary healthcare pathway either for us to be able to go and work at MeWatch Congress or Dinilla or anything like that. Not that I want to go down. That's my in-laws country.
And look, I'd certainly be agreeing that we have this ridiculous set of rules around who is actually eligible for primary health care. And let's face it, primary health care is vastly different to acute care. One is a wellness model, the other one's a sickness model. And what we want to do is we want to do a bit of our fishing upstream. We want to prevent people from getting sick. We actually want to keep our communities well. And to do that, we need people that can actually talk to their clients. Rule 1 of primary healthcare is know your clients. And if you don't speak their language, if you don't know their history, you're practicing veterinary medicine. You're not doing this for people. And I really think that we need to rethink how we approach primary healthcare. My sister here has qualifications in health already. She knows how to deal with patients. She knows how to assess an individual. She knows the difference between sickness and in health. For goodness sake, that must be a starting point. So why do we have this artificial overlay says you must be N3 before you go out bush? Where do our Aboriginal health workers start? They start in that community, they go back to that community, and they do their graduate year there. They do their graduate life there. You know, so this is really artificial. It should be challenged. It must be challenged.
And I'm challenging it. So I hope you're all standing with me.
Okay. So pathway from, I found that going from the hospital to a primary healthcare setting was actually, well, I wouldn't say challenging, but it was really different. So not different in a bad way, but not different in a good way either. So I was going from having like a patient load of like five little kiddies, enjoying my full day, like making sure that I had my timetable, like doing all those normal nursing things that you do on the ward, to then being like chucked in a room basically and being expected to read from this, like the CAPA manual, and then perform all your tasks based on this book, which is fine once you've read it, but the health workers and nurses weren't actually very supportive in the sense of being like, this is what you can do working in here, like this is your scope now. So I went from somewhere where you're going to go, you can give Panadol, Nurofen, oral antibiotics by yourself, and to like being like, do I need to get this doctor to check this medicine or get this other nurse? And I did that a few times and they were like, stop being annoying. So you figured out my scope, and now I love it. Like now I can't imagine going back to a ward where I don't actually get to have that extended scope. But what I found is that I think that a grad year on a hospital, like doing your 12 months in the hospital, is so much, it gives you so much exposure, and you get your basic nursing skills, so your time management, feeling like you can make those rapport with people, because like you're saying, you do actually need to know your patients when you're doing primary health care. So I transferred from doing the syphilis base, so like sexual health, which is actually really cool. I don't like adult nursing at all, but I found that primary health care is all right, like they're nice. They're really lovely, and it was amazing to be able to do so. For example, I've basically gone from that model of you do your 12 months, your grad program, and I couldn't think of anything worse than staying on the same ward for like 20 years. And when you look at it, the nurses that have been on the wards for 20 years, they're not really nice people. Like I feel like they've needed to change or like do something else to like, fill their cup or something. So you get what I mean, yeah, yes. But I found that I'm only this is my third year from graduating, so not exactly a very experienced nurse, but I have different experiences now that has made me a better nurse. So I was being able to run like my own nurse-led clinics, and and this was really cool. Like I've done clinics at Stringy Park, which is like the drug and alcohol. Like it was like they go there and they sober up, they get fed, and basically run a clinic there every Thursday morning at 6 o'clock, which is really hard to get up. You could take all your equipment, but it was really lovely because it's under the pretenses of like the test and treat model, which is what they're modelling the syphilis response, like Australia's syphilis response, I don't know what you call it. That's what they want you to do, test and treat. But it was being able to provide holistic care, and I feel like I wasn't being able to do that in the hospital setting, whereas now there was like an old nana that would come and she's like, I haven't had medicines for 7 months. So then we got to figure that out. And it's like, why didn't you use your medicine? Like, why haven't you been taking them? And then she's like, I'm homeless and I keep losing them. So it's like just little things like that, being able to be like, well, you can go to Stewart Park and you can get your medicines there and you can just get 1 month at a time. So something to us that health literate, being like, that's so simple, but to someone else, that it's not as simple. So you being able to explain that was really lovely. And also being able to work in a space that was good for the clients. So I was seeing a lot of transient patients and like long grass patients. And coming from Perth, I didn't actually know what long grass meant. So yeah, it was a learning curve. And then they were always telling me, like, I'm from Tiwi, I'm just here for a holiday. I'm like, what do you mean a holiday? Like, how long are you going to stay here? And it was over the Christmas period, so it was coming from like dry communities, and they're like, I'm literally coming for a holiday, like this is my holiday. So I got to do like a clinic on Mindil Beach on a Wednesday, which was my favourite, because they were like painting and like just singing and dancing, and then I'm there being like, you want a flu needle? Like, yeah, like the idea of just being able to be in their space and give them a flu needle, but then also be able to like sneakily have like a sexual health chat just really, really quickly, and just be like, can I finger prick you, or can I take your bloods? So it's made me, being able to go from that acute setting to go to primary healthcare has made me a better nurse, I think. But I still have my job back in Perth, still casual pool. So when I go home and visit mum, which is quite frequently because she's real needy. So, well, she is. So, like, it's good that I've kept that skill base, because I don't think that you should just be like, at this point in my career, I'm only a third year nurse. I don't know what I want to do. Like, I'm like looking at being a doctor. Like, who knows what you want to do? So it's little things like being, like, your pathway is not going to be straight, like your straight line. And I know that that sounds silly and everyone says that, but it's not. Me moving to Darwin, firstly, I don't like humidity at all. Like, I don't deal very well with the sweating and all that type of stuff. Yeah, and yeah, my hair also. And then just being in an environment that actually doesn't suit my lifestyle. Like, they've got limited breakfast places for like brunch and stuff. Like, you guys think that that's funny, but it's actually, like, to me, it's my self-care. So it's things like that, yeah. So it's for me to like move away specifically for, like, I did try 6 weeks at that hospital and I was like, nah, like, this is not for me. So at Royal Darwin, I tried the peds and I moved to the primary healthcare setting, and it's probably the best thing that I've done. So if you want to go to primary healthcare, when you're in the hospital, people are like, oh, you're just going to do OBS and like send them into the doctor. You're not. You're going to do more exciting things, and you actually do so much more than what you think you're going to do. And now I'm getting like a little bit sassy and telling the doctor, oh, can we do these bloods? Like, telling him what I want him to put on the path form because I'm interested, or like because he's missed something. So it's, you don't need to stay in the hospital. Scrubs are cute. Like, stay in the hospital if you like that type of stuff. But if you want to be a more holistic nurse, you don't have to come to primary healthcare. I'm not like trying to steal you, but go do something that interests you, that like your pathway is not just going to be stay in the hospital.
It's very colourful. I don't know. So my midwifery journey was never easy. I always found I had to create my own positions with the help of people like Leona and Marnie. I did my studies from Broken Hill and I travelled to the Gold Coast. And when I was wanting to do my grad year, I was told there were no grad year positions. Yet there were 2 positions that were going, which I missed out on because I was told that there were no grad positions, because I was just pretty much a woman that had my baby in the hospital. I was an Aboriginal woman who had my baby in the hospital, who you run into in the shops with your little black kids, barefoot, you know, running around, and I didn't fit into that scene so well. So anyway, a position was created with the help of, like I said, wonderful people like Leona. Did my grade year at the hospital, was MGP model, and from there I wanted to, because I grew up, like, mum being in the primary healthcare setting, that was like my passion, that's my safe space, that's where I believe that we can make a difference too, is spending time with women and families and doing that whole holistic care. So when my grad year was finished, there was no position, of course, and I saw a gap in a space of Aboriginal midwifery with the local AMS, which was Marama Health, where I could work as the midwife there and still do birthing. So an MOU was written up, and it was such a great opportunity where I could see the women at the primary healthcare setting but still go in to do births and hold that space, that sacred space for them in that acute setting. And And then I left there, and actually at Morama, she's going to shame now, there is an Aboriginal registered nurse, registered midwife working there now. And that's such an amazing thing that they can carry that on. That's amazing. And that's Tiff. Tiff is there. So circumstances have now led me up to Cairns. There, once again, no position. You find the gaps, you have those conversations, you talk about it. I did that, I made some phone calls. I said, hey, I think you need a midwife here. So those things came from that once again, and now I'm really happy where I am. And I love rural remote, absolutely love it. Loved working in Broken Hill and Wilcannia, and now up in Cairns. And there's no greater need, I think, than in those spaces, hey, where you can make a huge difference. I'm not saying you don't make a difference in the urban setting, but rural remote is something really, really special. Yep.
Okay, as I said before, I always wanted to go remote anyway, and how my pathway was, okay, I was at the Victorian Aboriginal Health Service. I'd been in St Vincent's, worked the emergency department, all that type of stuff. Then I was at the Victorian Aboriginal Health Service, and I was working there, and I still wanted to go remote. But sometimes, luckily with us and our connections, and we all know to each other, Katzenham's great because you meet and greet and you know people. I just got word of mouth. The lady that I was working with at the Victorian Aboriginal Health Service, my manager, her sister was working in the Poona Pima in Queensland, and said, do you know anyone down that we need a good Aboriginal nurse? Do you know anyone? It was just by word of mouth. So I've just gone and said, and she pulled me into the office in Victoria and said, you interested in going up to Queensland and do a bit of remote work? I said, yeah, I'll go, you know what I mean? Because I would have had to stay in Melbourne. If I wanted to go remote down the correct pathways, I would have had to do ICU training more, I would have done more ED, you know what I mean? It was like 6 years down the track to get all the qualifications basically that they needed me to go remote. You know what I mean? So that's a long way to go. And I said, yeah, I'll go. So I did. Sometimes you've got to make that split decision too. You can't just go mucking around. You either want to go or you don't. So I said, yeah, I'll go. So I didn't even really know I was going to. You know what I mean? I'm on the interview, over the phone and all that. Yeah, because I was so excited. I'm saying, yeah, I can do this. Yeah, whatever. Yeah, I'm your man. Well, when they get up there... This is what happens, because I obviously didn't listen in the interview. So get out there, gone to a community, Arakoon, which I've never been to before, you know, far north Queensland. And I get off, this is literally what happened that day. I get off the plane, go to the clinic, and it's a brand new clinic. It's all still in boxes. Boxes everywhere, nothing unpacked. And I've walked in, there's the manager, who's an Aboriginal health worker, and another Aboriginal Cert 4 Aboriginal health worker sitting there, and nothing. I said, well, what's going on? Why haven't we done anything? Oh, we've got to open the clinic next week. I said, oh, that's fabulous. I said, why aren't you doing anything? I said, because we're waiting for you. You're the nurse. Well, wow. Well, here we go. Well, I didn't know. How do you know? You don't know how to set up a clinic. We did it. A lot of work and support, but we ended up opening the doors 2 weeks later, which is amazing. And you learn on the spot. So this is what the confusing bit about it is they want you to have all these qualifications and all this stuff when you get out there, but you know every community is different. You learn it when you're there as well. So it's like it's a circle going around. You're chasing your tail because you're like, this community needs this sort of nursing care. This community, they're all different. So even if I go to another community where I am from now in Oak Valley, that'll be different. So, you know what I mean? Working in ICU at St Vincent's in Melbourne is really not giving me any training at all when I'm out there. You understand? So you sort of learn as you go. So, and that's what's happened to me. And I don't think I'd ever be able to go back to a hospital. I love being out remote. And I tell you, everybody, our people need us. I'm on the front line. They are struggling. They are still being told. It's like I say to the people I'm with, It's like 20 years behind. It's like they're queuing up and getting their rations with sugar and flour again. You know, you've got these bush nurses out there they've done a great job, but they need to hand it over to us now. You know, some of these old bush nurses are fabulous and they've experienced, but they've become institutionalised in our communities. They don't want to leave our communities because they're comfortable there. But are they doing the right thing by our communities? They're still doing the Western ways. The first thing I got when I got to Oak Valley, the CEO says to me, Jason, this is the first conversation I had with her. She says, welcome, Jason. But you've got to understand, Jason, they don't look at you as an Aboriginal. They look at you as a staff member. I'm thinking, hey, what's going on here? You know what I mean? Who are you? Here. Couldn't believe it. I nearly fell off the chair, you know, but she realises now that they do look at me as a black fella. You know why? Because they're all over my house, they're all having Sunday roast, they're in and out, the kids are in and out the pantry and all that type of stuff. You know, they don't go all the non-Indigenous stuff, they don't go anywhere near their house, they're all at my house. So it's hard, but we do, all I'm saying is the pathways are hard, but sometimes it's who you know and what you know, not what you know. So we've got connections out there, and I encourage you to come out because, as I said, our people, we need you on the front line because they just need us basically, okay? Because they're struggling, they really are.
I'll apologise now, I'm not going to be anywhere near as entertaining as my brother here. But a similar sort of a path. I graduated in Brisbane, I went to the Royal Brisbane there, I worked in 7G, the intensive care unit, and thought that would actually prepare me for remote practice. Like Jason, I knew where I wanted to work, I certainly knew I wanted to go to remote, and I landed in my first remote community. And it was probably 2 weeks before I did any actual nursing. And it certainly wasn't nursing as was taught to me in a hospital in an acute care setting. My first week, what I spent doing was I spent that week working on health functionality of houses, making sure the toilets flushed, making sure the taps worked, and all of that infrastructure that somebody was actually already in charge of, but they weren't doing. So what do? You just get out there and you do it. There's probably 3 things that you need to practice healthcare properly. You need ingenuity, you need diligence, and you need to know when to do the right thing. And there's sort of 3 principles that I've kept with me. And I don't necessarily know what the right thing is. So what do I do? It's not my community. And in fact, as an Aboriginal person, I was Bullender in these Arnhem Land communities. Bullender is a word that they used. It was used to refer to the Indonesians that were coming over, the Macassans that were trading with the coastal Arnhem Land people. I think it's a corruption of Hollander or something like that. But basically it meant outsider. And even as an Aboriginal person, I was an outsider. And you need to be conscious of that. You're going into somebody else's home. You do so respectfully. And you know what? These are open, this one's shut, you know? And that's where you get your guidance from. And I was very, very fortunate enough, I can say the man's name, thank goodness, because he's still alive. Chatty Koimala was my guide, you know, an Aboriginal health worker there who would tell me what the right thing was and what the wrong thing was. He taught me a few words of language, the only language that I can even partially speak is Gunwingu, but it's been incredibly useful because with language we transmit nuance and culture and those sorts of things. And it's very, very interesting when you hear people talking about healthcare and that sort of stuff. When people come to the front desk, you know, well, why are you here? And a lot of people would mutter under their breath, well, you're the healthcare, you're supposed to know. you know, give me healthcare, you know. And it wasn't until you actually sort of got into that exchange of, I'll tell you my story, you tell me your story, and then we've got a point of contact that we can work from. You know, there's engagement there, and then we can progress to the healthcare stuff. How you practice healthcare is very, very different. It does require commitment. One of the unfortunate things I see, one of the unfortunate trends in the Northern Territory is people come through and they come through for 3 months. We don't need dilettantes. We don't need tourists. We need people to come in and make a commitment to that community. You cannot engage with a community in anything less than 3 years, or better yet, get born there. You know, and that's certainly what we want to be seeing a lot more of. As for this business of you can't possibly do your grad year in a remote location, I can put the lie to that. So in 2012, I actually ran the Northern Territory Graduate Nurse Program, and as one of our rotations, we had a remote placement. And sending those people out, sending those nurses out there was a really good thing for both the nurses and the community. Community people would come and say, "Are you going to send the nurse back? That was the good nurse. We want that one. You know, send her back." And the nurses themselves would say, "When can I go back?" You know, but there was this artificial sort of steps that you had to go through in order to get there, and it's pretty unfortunate. We can streamline it. We should be streamlining it, and I look forward to the day that we do, because you know what, I'm probably at the end of my career. I'm getting a bit old and tired, and it's time for somebody else to take over.
I just wanted to mention we got some funding from RFDS to do some remote placements. We've just done a report for them, which I kind of scrambled together, but anyway, we've got it now. A lot of people approach us to go to Alice Springs, which is great. Acknowledge Teresa's here. But Alice Springs is very expensive to get to and very expensive for accommodation. So I'm doing a bit of a review of RFDS scholarships. It's gone back to their board. They're deciding if they're going to continue the funding. They give money to all the Aboriginal peaks, so Natsiwa, Iha and us, and I think they do Aida as well. But what I want to do is look at a bit broader out, like Gove, you know, up Mount Isa, you know, places that are sort of, I guess, a bit more affordable to get to. And I know everyone wants to go to Alice, but, you know, great place, and there's a lot of good experience there, but I think we need to use our money a bit wiser. And sometimes it can end up being very expensive going there. So I'm trying to change that a bit. So we're going to review the whole lot, because I want all of our nursing and midwifery students to have an opportunity to go into a remote community and have that experience, but be supported in that as well. Because there's some unique challenges there. So that's one thing I'm really interested in, and I want to grow that program so more people can have that opportunity. So they gave us 10,000. You can probably do about 4 or 5 people with that. We need more money, and that's what we told them. So we're going to open it up to a floor in a minute. I'll just say one more thing, Jen, sorry. The other thing I wanted to say is I am really interested in this stuff, and I will take all of this on board. We are filming it, so not necessarily to sort of publish it, but for me to sit and write this up with the team. I will advocate for this stuff because I know a lot of, you know, the people I talk to are really interested in how do I get into community programs? How do I get in there as a grad? I don't want to sit in a hospital. Hospital's not for everyone, you know, and I totally agree. You know, having grown up on a cattle station in a remote community, my auntie was an EN. She dealt with all the medical emergencies. Like we had a young boy was sitting on a jerry can of fuel, got up and his pants got caught, the jerry can tipped over and they were near a campfire and he caught on fire. He had 80% burns to his body, and my auntie, who's an EN, had the medical chest and a two-way radio back then, now it would be a phone, and a doctor on the other end dealing with a young boy who was in a lot of pain, and they literally had to dump him in a bath, put, you know, water in there and wrap him and just give him whatever they had in the chest and wait for the RFDS plane that was, you know, a 4-hour trip away and deal with that. And that's trauma for us in the community. Like, we could hear him screaming and we lived across the creek, and that's trauma for our community as well. So they're the stories I remember. We used to have, Gibber Road has rollovers all the time now. How does working in ED or ICU help you to deal with a rollover? You know, I used to do volunteer fire brigade, and a young fella died in a vehicle accident. They hit a pole in Derby, and I had PTSD from that. I had dreams about this boy. I had to search his pockets for ID because the cops wouldn't do it, of course. And then I was having flashbacks and stuff. But I'm like, this is the stuff my auntie who was an EN was dealing with, people from rollovers, people getting run over and having to cope with that and the trauma that causes in that community as well. But I don't know how working in ICU, and I've worked in ICU, or ED would help you deal with that, where you're on your own, you've got limited equipment, you've got an oxylog, and you have to deal with those sorts of emergencies on your own, So I'm really interested in this stuff, and I want to just kind of throw it out to the floor and just get a feel for whether others are, or you've got comments, doesn't have to be a question. And I've got to say, this panel has been amazing, so thanks for sharing.
I don't have any experience working remotely, but I'm really keen to support our nursing and midwifery students and new grads. I guess speaking about, who was it? I think it was Amy that said she really enjoyed that, that new grad role, and she felt she was a better nurse for it. It's what the system's put in place telling us you have to go to do your new grad rotation. Like if you want to, there's no actual requirements for it, when it comes to our registration. If you know what you want to do, like what, each and every one of these people here, I think, have done, take the initiative and go out and do it. And it also reminds me of, when I first was doing my midwifery training, I can't tell you how many times those registered nurses / registered midwives said, how can you be a midwife without being a nurse first? So it's the same kind of thing, I guess. You want to go out and do your remote or, rural nursing, go for it.
So I think Marnie's got a mic. Yeah, we've got some questions.
Hi, thanks guys, really great panel. I just have a comment that maybe other students would be interested in, and this is purely speaking from a Queensland perspective. So I did my grad year through Queensland Health, and I went to Thursday Island in the Torres Strait. So that was classed as remote under the grad, where you fill out the grad form. And there was other opportunities. There was, there was an opportunity to go in the Cape, a few hours outside of Cairns, Mareeba, Atherton. Although those places aren't necessarily really remote, they are different to a tertiary hospital, and places like Weipa and that sort of thing. So there is opportunities, at least in Queensland. I'm not familiar with other grad programs, and I guess my lesson from that was that although I was based in Thursday Island, we did have connections to the far north Queensland and the Cape, and so we did, we went to hospitals that were on the Cape and much more remote than any of my classmates would have gone to. And so I think that is a really great opportunity. If remote or rural nursing is what you want to do, there is some opportunities, although they may not be, certainly not as remote as what Jason's doing, but there are other options, I guess.
Hi guys, my name's Maddie. I'm originally from Darwin, but I actually did my study down in Perth. And when I graduated, I was kind of in this boat where I was like, I don't want to work in a city hospital. I don't want to stay in the big city. I want to go remote. But I ended up doing my grad program in Perth at two of the big tertiary hospitals, at the Women's and at Charlie's. And then after that, I did a program called the Travel Program through WA Country Health, which I've actually spoken to a couple of the nursing students here about, because although you do have to do your first year, because it is a minimum 1 year experience program, after that they'll take anyone, and basically what they do is they break down all of WA Country Health, and you get 3 rotations at any remote hospital that you're eligible for based on your skill level. So I had to go to kind of bigger regional hubs because I'd only been a nurse for 1 year. So I went to Geraldton, Kalgoorlie and Esperance. So I gradually kind of worked down to smaller hospitals. And then once I finished that program, they did offer me to stay on and said you can go to smaller, nursing post kind of places. So I think it's just important to remember that you can't go from city hospitals or no experience to like these super remote places. Like, you know, you have to really work your way kind of down if that's what you're looking to do, remote hospitals. And that program, if anyone's interested, is great. And it's fully, like, they cover all your accommodation, all your travel, and a really supported program. So if anyone's interested in WA, that was my pathway to rural and remote. And yeah, I found it a really great program. And it's for anyone, doesn't matter if you've got 1 year experience or 10, they'll take you on board. So yeah, it was great.
Thanks, I'm Jenny. I was just going to say that from a Katzenam perspective, it's probably valuable to get bang for buck for the scholarship by actually using the rural and remote communities in every jurisdiction, with the exception of Tassie and Victoria. Every jurisdiction in Australia has rural and remote community health services in all of the the Monash modified stages of rural and remote. So if you've got applicants from New South Wales, send them to New South Wales locations. If you've got the Territory applicants, send them to in the Territory. That would save quite a lot of money for travel and accommodation, I think.
Thanks, Jenny. I think a part of the challenge is the university has to sign off on it as well, and it has to become a part of the placement, which has to have sign off. I'm on my eyes here. So that's a part of the difficulty with it. We do lean on the Centres for Rural Health a lot because they often provide subsidised or free accommodation. But a big challenge is the university sign off. So I think that's some of the work we need to do. I think quite a few of the unis in New South Wales and Queensland do provide that sign off. But yeah, it is difficult. Like, it'd be great to send people to those 4 to 7 areas, but there's a modified Monash scale, which is, yeah, that one, which is what Jenny's talking about, and 4 to 7 sort of classified as, you know, rural and remote. Interestingly, Rottnest Island is classified as 6 or 5 or something. It's weird. I don't know, it's weird. It's a 5, yeah. So, yeah, but I agree with you. I think we need to look a bit broader, but that relies on, you know, we're going to have to go talk to these unis, and just to let you know, Leona's taking some notes as well, so her and I are going to have some work to do. Thanks. All right, thank you.
Can I just share some information for all of you in the room, the students anyway? If you're going to come to the Northern Territory, Flinders Medical have got an accommodation program that they run in the Territory. So pretty much when I went down to Alice Springs to do my placement down there, I paid $150 a week to be down there in a beautiful 3-bedroom self-contained house. I had Wi-Fi, push bike if I wanted it, but big girl, I drove my car because I'm like, I don't want your push bike, but anyway. But yeah, but then they've got this thing called Stipner or something, I think it's called. It's all on their website, but they actually give you back $120. You know, if you're Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander. So it's just like a little scholarship thing. So I paid $30 a week to go to Alice Springs, and I'm about to go to Gove to do my last 6 weeks of my placement as well. And again, they're putting me in one of these 3-bedroom, air-conditioned houses, you know, 200 metres from the beach. And that's not only for Charles Darwin University students, that's for anybody's university. If you can get in and get in those placements, because I know MeWatch will take you, Congress will take you, the hospitals will take you, you know what I mean? And just kind of step out of your comfort zones, because when we're talking community hospitals, it's absolutely no comparison to the remote locations in the Northern Territory in regards to what it is that we actually see up there and the things that we deal with. And, you know, you can get it for free. So go for it.
What was it called?
Flinders Medical. Yeah, so think doctor, but you don't have to be a doctor. You can access the scholarships and stuff.
G'day. This one's more for Jace and Ted, who've worked across, you know, remote and also in urban Aboriginal health and Torres Strait Islander health. And you know, given the statistics, I'm not 100% sure across it, like exactly what the statistics are, but I do know that there are a lot of mobs that live in urban areas as well as remote, and this is obviously talking more about remote, but that there's a bit of a misconception that working with mob means working out in the remote areas. And as two of our board members and two of the panel members who've done extensive work both in the urban Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander communities and the remote Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander communities. What do you think the importance is of having mob working in the urban areas as well as the rural and remote areas? Sorry to throw you such a hairy one.
Late in the day for that one, Si.
You could hardly describe anything as hairy, my brother. I guess to begin with, certainly from my perspective, primary healthcare is primary healthcare wherever you practice it, and those same principles would apply. Know your patients, incorporate the concepts like a trauma-informed care when you're dealing with people, so that you actually understand where they're coming from and what other issues might be peripheral to that main one, because nobody ever comes in with just the one issue, and you can second guess some of those maybe, or you can actually have an understanding of your client group and try to address those. I mean, you dive on somebody every time you see them and do a syphilis, for instance, and we've got this syphilis point of care tests and those sorts of things. I guess in the first instance, knowing that that's necessary, but in how you do that too, is particularly important, give you a syphilis test because I think, you've got some nasty habits. It's not about that at all, it's about how you communicate that stuff, and you need to do it sensitively and you need to do it in a way that the client actually comes to the same understanding that you do, which is this is actually necessary for reproductive health, all of those other things, but yeah, the same principles do apply. Like even working in prisons, for me it was very much primary health care. It was very similar to remote because a lot of the people that I was seeing had come from those remote communities. It's just there was a lot more barbed wire. That was the only difference that I could see. So yeah, the same principles apply wherever you are, in the long grass in town or, whether you're out in the sticks, Jason, sorry.
Yeah, well, I agree. It is the same principles, but all my message is really, and I know it sounds like I'm wanting you all to go to remote, but I do. You know what I mean? It's because our people remote need us because they've got no choice. In urban and everything, if they don't want to go to the Victorian Aboriginal Health Service, they can go to St Vincent's. You know what I mean? Out there, they've got nothing. And I don't even know if you can tell them things. People are doing things that you don't understand what's going on, people. This is why I'm glad I'm on this panel, to open your eyes and just understand the pain I go through some days. Simple things. Oak Valley has 20 houses, 10 for staff, 10 for the community. Flushing toilets are in the staff houses. This is how our people are being treated still. Our community have to go out the back still with a drop box. And the staff have flushing toilets? Come on. There's poor people out there, they don't know because they're so remote. They just say yes, no problem, yes. Oh, we're going to do this, yeah, that's fine, yes. You know what I mean? They're being so controlled still. So, I've probably got off track, but I just get so passionate, it just breaks my heart, And with all these fabulous nurses and midwives were coming through, and it's just like, I know the big hospitals are fabulous and all that, but I'm thinking of our people. Our people need us. They really do.
I'll just make a comment, sorry, just from my personal experience. One of those things I have with students come through, I try to encourage to build some character, some resilience. Being Aboriginal, people will not always want you. So when you apply for a grad programs, I say to students, well, give it a go, but demand feedback. If you fail your grad program application, ask them why. I want to get better at the next application. And that's what I've done, and within the week they wanted me on casual pool. The other thing is the universities, the School of Nursing and Midwiferys, on their websites say we guarantee our graduates will get jobs. We'll hold them accountable. Ask them, well, I paid all this money. You said that we guarantee that there's a huge demand for nurses out there. What are you talking about? Either, make it true or take it off the website because you're lying to us. And the other thing is, I encourage students to stop waiting around. I've never done a grad program. I couldn't even be bothered really because, most Aboriginal people, when you graduate from like for myself, enrolled nursing, you need to go out there and earn some money. So what I've done is just get on a phone, ring up and say, can I get a job? And I need a place to stay. And so within the month, they got me a place and I got a job. Just turn up on the Greyhound bus and I started in a week. Because, nurses on the floor, do you have a duty to support other nurses? So I encourage you to hold them accountable, and they need to support you in developing your clinical skills, but also your career pathways. Yeah.
I think I might need to wrap it up now. So I just want to thank this amazing bunch of people here. Stick around for afternoon tea, we'll have a yarn. I've got some things to talk through first, but can we just give these guys a massive round of applause?